Park had been driving the night bus for 15 years. He knew every street, every stop, every broken light in the mixed district of Seoul. The year was 2347, and Earth had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 50 years now. Aliens walked the streets just like humans. Some were tall, some were short, some had scales, some had fur, had seen them all. He was 42 years old, quiet and tired most of the time. His job was simple: pick up passengers, drop them off. Don't ask questions, don't cause trouble. He liked it that way. Route 77 was not a popular route. It ran through the rougher parts of the district where few humans wanted to go after dark. The streets were narrow and poorly lit. The buildings were old and crumbling. Most of his passengers were aliens who could not afford to live in the nicer areas. They worked hard jobs for little money, just like himself. On a cold Tuesday night, the small alien woman boarded his bus for the first time. Noticed her immediately, not because she was strange, but because she was so small. She stood only about 4 feet tall, maybe a little more. Her skin was pale blue, almost like ice. Her eyes were large and completely dark, like 2 pools of black water. She wore simple gray clothes that looked too big for her thin body. She paid her fare without speaking and walked to the back of the bus. She sat in the last seat by the window and stared out at the dark streets. Watched her in his mirror for a moment. He had never seen her species before. She looked fragile, like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes. He felt a strange urge to ask if she was okay, but he said nothing. It was not his business. The bus continued on its route. Over the next few weeks, the small alien woman became a regular passenger. She boarded at the same stop every night, always at 11:47 p.m. She always sat in the same seat at the back. She never spoke to anyone. She just watched. Learned that her species was called They were new to Earth, recently contacted by the Coalition. Nobody knew much about them. Most people assumed they were a weak, unimportant species. After all, they were so small. What could they possibly do? The other passengers on Route 77 certainly thought so. They were the worst. They were massive aliens, standing over 7 feet tall with thick gray skin and 4 arms. They were strong and they knew it. They liked to remind smaller species of their place. One male in particular seemed to enjoy tormenting the small woman. His name was something could not pronounce, so he just called him the Big One in his head. Every night, the Big One would make comments as he passed her seat. "Look at the little ghost," he would say loudly to his friends. "Is it even real? Maybe it is just a child who got lost." His friends would laugh. The woman would say nothing. She would simply look at them with those dark, empty eyes. Wanted to say something. He wanted to tell them to leave her alone, but he was just a bus driver. What could he do against a group of They could break him in half without trying? So he said nothing. He just watched in his mirror and felt ashamed. They were almost as bad. They were not as large as but they were proud and military. They believed that strength was everything. Weakness was shameful. And to them, the woman was the weakest thing they had ever seen. "Your species should have stayed hidden," a female told the woman one night. "The galaxy has no place for things that cannot fight." The woman tilted her head slightly. For a moment, thought he saw something flicker in her dark eyes. But then it was gone, and she simply turned back to the window. Weeks passed. The insults continued. The woman never responded. She never fought back. She never even seemed upset. She just watched, always watching with those eyes that seemed to see everything and nothing at the same time. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining hard. The bus was more crowded than usual because nobody wanted to walk in the storm. The Big One was there with his friends, already drunk on something that smelled like burning metal. They were loud and pushing other passengers around. The woman sat in her usual spot, quiet as always. The Big One noticed her. He smiled, showing rows of yellow teeth. "Little ghost," he called out, walking toward the back of the bus. "You are in my seat." She looked up at him. She did not move. I said move, he growled. Still, she did not move. The big one grabbed her by the arm and threw her to the floor of the bus. She hit the ground hard, her small body making a sound like a bag of sticks falling. The other passengers looked away. Nobody wanted trouble with a drunk. Stop the bus. He did not think about it. He did not plan it. He just did it. He got up from his seat, walked to the back of the bus, and helped the woman to her feet. Are you hurt? He asked quietly. She looked at him. Up close, her eyes were even stranger than he had thought. They were not just dark. They were deep, like looking into a hole that had no bottom. I am not hurt, she said. Her voice was soft and calm. She spoke perfect Korean without any accent. Thank you. The big one laughed. The human wants to protect the little ghost. How sweet. Maybe I should throw you both off the bus. Turned to face him. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking. There was twice his size and 3 times his weight. He could not win a fight, he knew that. But he stood there anyway. This is my bus, said. His voice was steady even though he was terrified. There will be no more throwing passengers. Sit down or get off. The big one stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed again, louder this time. Stupid human, he said, but he turned and walked back to his friends. The moment had passed. Helped the woman back to her seat. His hands were still shaking. I am sorry, he said. I should have stopped them before. She looked at him with those bottomless eyes. You are kind, she said quietly. That is rare. Remember this kindness. Did not understand what she meant. He nodded awkwardly and returned to his seat. The rest of the ride was quiet. When the big one got off at the next stop, something was wrong with him. He stumbled down the steps like he was sick. His gray skin had turned pale, almost white. His 4 hands were shaking badly. Heard him muttering as he left. Cold, there was saying. So cold, so many eyes, they see everything, they see everything. His friends helped him walk away into the rain. They looked confused and scared. Looked in his mirror at the woman. She was watching the leave, and for the first time since he had met her, she was smiling. It was a small smile, gentle even, but something about it made his blood turn cold. He drove the rest of his route in silence. When the woman got off at her stop, she nodded to him politely. Good night, driver, she said. I will see you tomorrow. Nodded back. He watched her walk away into the dark, her small figure disappearing into the rain. That night he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the big one's face, pale and terrified, muttering about cold and eyes. And he saw her smile. Something was very wrong, could feel it in his bones. The small alien woman was not what she seemed. She was not weak. She was not helpless. She was something else entirely. And he had a terrible feeling that he was going to find out what. 1 week passed after the incident on the bus. Tried to forget what he had seen. He told himself that the big one had simply been drunk. The pale skin, the shaking hands, the muttering about eyes and cold, it was just the alcohol, nothing more. But he could not stop thinking about her smile. Was the one who made him realize he was not imagining things. Was another bus driver. She worked Route 45, which ran through the commercial district on the other side of the city. She was 10 years younger than loud and always gossiping. She knew everything that happened in the transit company. They met for coffee at the depot between shifts, as they often did. Did you hear about the, asked, leaning forward with wide eyes. The big one with 4 arms, the one who always rides your route. Stomach tightened. What about him? He is in the hospital, some kind of mental breakdown. They found him in his apartment 3 days ago, just sitting in a corner and crying. He could not remember his own name. Said nothing. He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup and felt the warmth against his cold fingers. But that is not the strange part, continued. He is not the only one. 3 other aliens have had the same thing happen to them this month. All of them had one thing in common. What? Lowered her voice. They all harassed. You know, those small blue aliens. The new ones that nobody knows anything about. Every single one of the victims had been cruel to individuals before they went crazy. Thought about the night on the bus. He thought about the big one throwing to the floor. He thought about her smile as they stumbled off into the rain, muttering about cold and eyes. That is just a coincidence, he said, but his voice was weak. Shook her head. The coalition does not think so. They have quietly increased security around all visitors. Nobody is talking about it officially, but something is going on, something big. That night went home and searched for information about the on his computer. He found almost nothing. There was listed as classified. Their population was listed as unknown. Their technological level was described only as sufficient. What did sufficient mean? Sufficient for what? There were no pictures of their planet, no history, no culture, nothing. It was like they had appeared out of nowhere. The only thing he found was a short article from a who had studied them briefly. The article said that appeared to be physically weak, with fragile bodies and limited strength. They showed no signs of advanced technology. They seemed to be a minor species of no particular importance. But at the bottom of the article, there was a note that had been added later. Update: the author of this article has requested that it be removed. He has declined to explain why. Stared at the screen for a long time. The next night he drove his route as usual. The woman, he had learned her name, was boarded the bus at 11:47, just like always. She paid her fare and walked to the back. But tonight she stopped next to his seat. "Thank you again," she said softly, "for helping me last week." Nodded. It was nothing. It was not nothing, said. Her dark eyes looked into his. Kindness is never nothing. She walked to the back and sat in her usual seat. Drove in silence, watching her occasionally in his mirror. She sat perfectly still, staring out the window. She did not move. She did not blink. She was like a statue. "What are you?" he wanted to ask. "What did you do to that?" But he said nothing. He was afraid of the answer. 3 nights later, Commander boarded his bus. Was a military officer, one of the highest-ranking aliens stationed on Earth. He was tall and muscular, with dark red skin and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore his military uniform proudly and walked like he owned the world. He was with 4 other soldiers. They were loud and arrogant, taking up seats without paying and pushing other passengers aside. Said nothing. He knew better than to challenge military. They were protected by diplomatic rules. They could do whatever they wanted. Noticed immediately. "What is this?" he said loudly, pointing at her. On a public transport. Does your species not have enough dignity to walk?" His soldiers laughed. Looked at him calmly. She did not respond. Walked closer to her. He was more than twice her height. He towered over her like a mountain over a pebble. "I have read about your species," he said. "Evolutionary mistakes. You should have died out millions of years ago. The galaxy does not need creatures like you. You are pets pretending to be people." His soldiers laughed again. Tilted her head slightly, and then she smiled. It was the same smile had seen before. Small, gentle, and absolutely terrifying. "Perhaps," she said softly, "or perhaps the galaxy is not what you think it is." Snorted. "Is that a threat, little creature?" "No," said, "just an observation." Stared at her for a moment, then laughed and walked back to his soldiers. "Pathetic," he said, "completely pathetic." They got off the bus a few stops later, still laughing. Looked at in his mirror, she was still smiling. That night dreamed. He dreamed of darkness. Not ordinary darkness, but something deeper, something alive. He was floating in an endless void, surrounded by nothing. And then he saw the eyes. Thousands of them, millions of them. They opened all around him, filling the darkness with their cold, watching gaze. They were dark like eyes, but they were also ancient. They had seen the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. They had watched civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. They looked at him. They saw everything. Woke up screaming. He was covered in sweat, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would burst. He sat in his bed, shaking, for an hour before he could move. It was just a dream, he told himself, just a dream. But he knew it was not. The next morning, the news broke. Commander had been found in his quarters, alive but unresponsive. Medical scans showed that his brain activity had been reduced to that of an infant. He could not walk. He could not feed himself. He could not remember who he was or where he came from. The only words he could speak over and over again were, the small one sees everything. The military demanded answers. The Galactic Coalition called emergency meetings. Earth's government issued statements promising investigation. But nobody knew what had happened. Nobody except. He sat in his apartment, watching the news, his hands shaking. He thought about Smile. He thought about the eyes in his dream. He thought about all the aliens who had been cruel to and had lost their minds. They were not weak. They were not helpless. They were not a minor species of no importance. They were something else entirely, something ancient, something powerful, something that had been watching and waiting. And now realized they were watching him too. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Do not be afraid," it said. "You showed kindness, you are safe, but others are not, the test has begun." Stared at the message for a long time. Then he got dressed and went to work. He did not know what else to do. That night boarded his bus at 11:47, just like always. She sat in the back, just like always. She looked out the window at the dark streets. But this time, she looked at him in the mirror and nodded slightly. And understood. Whatever was coming, he was part of it now. There was no going back. 2 days after Commander lost his mind, 2 men in black suits came to his apartment. They did not knock. They simply opened the door and walked in, was eating breakfast. He dropped his spoon and stood up quickly, his heart racing. "Park?" one of the men asked. He was tall and thin with a face that showed no emotion. "Yes," said. "Who are you? How did you get in?" "You need to come with us," the man said, ignoring his questions. "Now." They took him to a government building he had never seen before. It was underground, hidden beneath an ordinary office tower in the center of the city. The hallways were long and white and empty. Armed guards stood at every door. Was terrified. He thought he was being arrested. He thought they blamed him for what had happened to the commander. They took him to a large room with a long table. A woman was waiting for him. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a dark suit and carried herself like someone who made important decisions. "Sit down, Mr. Park," she said. Her voice was calm but tired. "My name is Director. I run the division. We need to talk." Sat, his legs were shaking. "Am I in trouble?" he asked. Director almost smiled. "Almost." "No," she said. "You are the opposite of trouble. You are the only human on Earth who has had peaceful, repeated contact with an individual. You treated her with kindness when others treated her with cruelty. That makes you very important right now." "I do not understand." Director leaned forward. "Mr. Park, Earth is in danger, not from invasion, not from war, from judgment. They are not what we thought they were. They are not weak. They are not a minor species. They are something far, far older and more powerful than anything we have ever encountered." She pressed a button on the table. A hologram appeared in the air above them. It was but not like. This one was ancient. Its blue skin was almost white, covered in patterns that looked like stars. Its eyes were not just dark. They seemed to contain entire galaxies, swirling and shifting with light. "This is the speaker," Director said. "The representative of the people. It has agreed to explain what is happening." The speaker looked at. When it spoke, its voice was like many voices layered together, soft and ancient and terrible. "Park," it said, "the kind one, we have been watching you." Swallowed hard, "What are you?" The speaker smiled. It was the same gentle, terrifying smile had. "We are it said. "We are 2 million years old. We were traveling between stars before your species learned to walk upright. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched galaxies collide. We are among the oldest living things in the universe." "But you look so," stopped, not sure how to continue. "Weak," the speaker finished. "Small, fragile, yes, that is by design. Our bodies are merely vessels, containers for what we truly are. Our true forms exist in dimensions your species cannot see or understand. We are beings of thought and energy. These small bodies are just how we choose to appear." Director spoke up. "They are psychics, Mr. Park, the most powerful psychics in the known galaxy. They can read minds. They can destroy minds. They can see across time and space. A single could turn every brain on this planet to mush if it wanted to." Felt sick. He thought about sitting quietly in the back of his bus every night. He thought about how close he had been to something that could destroy him with a thought. "Then why?" he asked. "Why do you let people hurt you? Why do you not fight back immediately?" The speaker's expression did not change. "Because pain to our vessels is meaningless," it said. "We feel it, but it does not harm what we truly are. We allow ourselves to be mocked and pushed and thrown to the floor because it reveals truth." "What truth?" "The truth of who you really are." The speaker leaned forward, its galaxy eyes boring into. "We deliberately appear weak to test other species. We want to see how they treat those who cannot fight back. We want to see if they have cruelty in their hearts or kindness. This is how we judge civilizations." "Judge for what?" Director asked. Her voice was tight. "To determine if they deserve to exist," the speaker said simply. "Young species are dangerous. They have power but no wisdom. They spread across the stars like disease, destroying everything they touch. We must know if a species can be trusted before we allow them to grow further. If they are cruel, we correct them." "Correct them," repeated. "Their expansion is stopped. Their technology is taken. Their memories of the stars are erased. They are returned to their planet and made to start again. We have done this many times." The room was silent, could hear his own heartbeat. "Is that what you are going to do to Earth?" he asked. The speaker looked at him for a long moment. "That has not been decided yet," it said. "Your species is complicated. You are capable of great cruelty. We have seen it. The commander, the officer, the many others who hurt our people, they showed the darkness in your hearts." But the speaker continued, "You are also capable of kindness. We have seen that too. You Park showed us. When no one else would help, you helped. When it would have been safer to stay silent, you spoke. You asked for nothing in return. You simply did what was right." Shook his head. "I am just a bus driver. I did not do anything special." "That is exactly why it was special," the speaker said. "You had no power. You had nothing to gain. And still you stood up for someone weaker than yourself. That is the true measure of a species, not what the strong do with their strength, but what the weak do with their weakness." Director stood up. "What happens now? What do you want from us?" The speaker turned to her. "The one called is a witness. She was sent to observe humanity and determine if your species should be elevated to true partnership with the galaxy or contained. She has chosen Park as her lens into humanity. Through him, she sees who you truly are." The speaker looked back at. "We ask that you continue your normal life. Drive your bus. Treat passengers with the same kindness you have always shown. Let's see humanity through your eyes." "And if what she sees is bad?" asked. "Then there will be consequences." "And if what she sees is good?" The speaker almost smiled. "Then there will be hope." The hologram flickered and disappeared. Director sat down heavily, looking older than she had an hour ago. "You understand what this means?" she said too. The fate of our entire species may depend on you. Laughed, it was not a happy laugh. I am a bus driver, he said again. I drive Route 77. I pick up passengers and drop them off. I do not save planets. Director looked at him steadily. Maybe that is exactly why you can, she said. They let him go home that night. He walked through the dark streets of the city, looking at the aliens and humans passing by. They did not know how close they were to the edge. They did not know that ancient beings were watching their every move, judging them. But knew. He went to work the next night. He drove his route. At 11:47, boarded the bus. She sat in the back, as always. But this time, she caught his eye in the mirror and nodded slightly. They understood each other now. She was watching. He was being watched. And somehow, the future of humanity depended on what she saw. Gripped the steering wheel and drove on into the night. He had never asked to be important. He had never wanted to be special. But sometimes, he realized, the universe chose you whether you wanted it or not. All he could do was be himself and hope that was enough. The weeks that followed were the strangest of his life. On the surface, nothing changed. He still drove Route 77 every night. He still picked up passengers and dropped them off. He still nodded politely and kept to himself. But everything felt different now. Every interaction felt heavy with meaning. Every moment felt like a test. Because it was. Still boarded his bus at 11:47 every night. But now she sat closer to the front, only a few rows behind him. Sometimes she would speak to him during quiet moments when no other passengers were near. Why do humans form lines? She asked one night. You wait patiently even when you are in a hurry. Other species push and fight. It is polite, said. We do not want to be rude. But no one would punish you for pushing. That is not the point. We do it because it is right, not because we are afraid of punishment. Tilted her head, considering this. Interesting, she said. Another night, she asked him about crying. Humans leak water from their eyes when they are sad, she said, but also when they are happy and when they are angry. Why? Thought about it. I think feelings are too big sometimes. They overflow. The tears help let them out. Your bodies cannot contain your emotions. Sometimes we feel things that are bigger than ourselves. Was quiet for a long time after that. She stared out the window at the passing lights, her dark eyes reflecting the glow. We feel too, she said finally, but differently. We feel across time. We feel the echoes of choices that have not been made yet. It is heavy. Did not fully understand, but he nodded anyway. A new passenger started riding Route 77. Her name was, and she was 17 years old. She had short black hair, wore headphones constantly, and never looked anyone in the eye. She boarded the bus 3 stops after and sat alone in the middle section. Noticed that other passengers avoided her. Humans whispered about the strange girl who talked to herself. Aliens looked at her with disgust because she was awkward and different. But was not strange, had seen her type before. She was just lonely and anxious and trying to survive in a world that was too loud. One night dropped her bag getting on the bus. Her things spilled everywhere, books, a phone with a cracked screen, a small stuffed animal that she quickly tried to hide. The passengers behind her groaned impatiently. Got up from his seat and helped her pick everything up. Take your time, he said quietly. No rush. Looked at him with surprise. Thank you, she whispered. After that night, started sitting closer to the front. And slowly, almost accidentally, she started sitting near. Watched them in his mirror. At first they did not speak. They just sat near each other in comfortable silence. But over time they began to talk. Small conversations. Simple things. What is that? Asked one night, pointing its headphones. Music, said. Wanna hear? She gave one earbud too. The alien woman put it in her ear and listened. Her expression did not change, but she listened for a long time. It makes patterns, said finally. Patterns of sound that create patterns of feeling. I never thought of it that way, said. But yeah, that is kind of what it does. They became friends after that. The lonely human girl and the ancient alien being in a small blue body. They were both outsiders. They both knew what it was like to be judged for how they looked. Watched this friendship grow and felt something warm in his chest. Maybe this was what they needed to see. Maybe this was the proof that humanity was worth saving. Then came the night that everything changed. It was late, past midnight. The bus was nearly empty, and a few tired workers heading home. Was driving through a quiet industrial area when the bus suddenly stopped. He had not touched the brakes. A large vehicle blocked the road ahead. 5 figures stepped out, all of them aliens, all of them armed. Traffickers had heard about them. They captured vulnerable individuals, refugees, tourists, anyone who would not be missed, and sold them to mining operations in the outer systems. It was illegal, but Route 77 ran through areas where the law was weak. The leader walked toward the bus. He was smaller than the big one but meaner looking. He carried a weapon that looked like a gun but hummed with energy. Everyone stay calm, he announced, stepping onto the bus. We are just going to take a few of you, the weak ones, the ones nobody will look for. His eyes scanned the passengers. They stopped on, shaking in her seat. They stopped on, small and fragile looking. Perfect, he said, smiling. 2 little mice, get up. Stood, no. They looked at him with amusement. What did you say? I said no, they are my passengers, I am responsible for them. They walked toward him slowly. Bus driver, I have killed men for less than this. Sit down and be quiet and maybe I will let you live. Did not sit. His legs were shaking. His hands were trembling. He knew he could not fight this creature. He knew he was going to die. But he stood there anyway. No, he said again. They raised his weapon. Your choice. He hit across the face with the gun. Fell hard, his vision blurring, blood filling his mouth. He heard scream. Now, they said, turning back to him, let us try this again. And then stood up. The air in the bus changed. It became cold, so cold that could see his breath. The lights flickered and dimmed. A deep hum filled the space, like the sound of something vast and ancient waking up. They turned to. He saw a small, fragile alien woman. He laughed. What are you going to do, little ghost? Opened her eyes. Not 2 eyes, dozens of them. They appeared across her face, her neck, her arms, dark eyes opening everywhere, each one containing depths that should not exist, each one looking at with the weight of 2 million years. I am going to show you what I am, said. Her voice was not one voice anymore. It was thousands of voices, layered together, speaking from dimensions beyond human understanding. The traffickers screamed. They did not see what showed them, was grateful for that. He only saw their faces, the absolute terror, the sudden understanding of how small and meaningless they were in the universe. The leader fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. He was babbling, begging. Please, he sobbed. Please, I see it. I see what we did. Please make it stop. Was showing them their crimes, every victim they had ever taken, every life they had destroyed, every moment of pain they had caused, compressed into a single instant of perfect understanding. 3 of the traffickers collapsed and did not move again. Their minds were gone, emptied like cups. 2 survived, but they were changed forever. They would never hurt anyone again. They would spend the rest of their lives trying to make up for what they had done. The leader crawled toward the door, still weeping, still begging. He stumbled off the bus and disappeared into the night. Closed her eyes, all of them. She shrank back to her small, fragile appearance. The cold faded. The lights returned to normal. She turned to, who was still on the floor, bleeding from his mouth. Are you all right? She asked. Her voice was soft again, normal. Stared at her. He did not know what to say. Was standing frozen in her seat. She had seen everything, but instead of fear, there was wonder on her face. "You protected us," whispered. Tilted her head. "The bus driver protected us first. He stood up when he knew he could not win. He chose kindness over safety. I simply finished what he started." She helped to his feet. Her hands were small and cold but gentle. "This is what we look for," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "This is what makes a species worthy. Not power, not strength. The willingness to stand for others even when you have nothing to gain and everything to lose." Wiped blood from his mouth. His head was pounding. His face hurt. But somehow he felt more alive than he had in years. "I was just doing my job," he said. Smiled. It was not the terrifying smile he had seen before. It was warm, almost human. "No," she said, "you were being yourself, and that is enough." She helped him back to his seat. He took a breath, started the bus, and drove on through the night. Behind him, moved to sit next to. The two of them held hands in the darkness, the lonely human girl and the ancient cosmic being. And understood something important. Kindness was not weakness. Kindness was the most powerful thing in the universe. He just had to hope that humanity had enough of it. 6 months passed after the night on the bus. Word had spread about what happened. Not the official story. The government tried to keep that secret, but the real story. The one about the small alien woman who was not weak at all. The one about the ancient beings who had been watching humanity all along. People reacted differently. Some were afraid. They wanted to leave Earth. They held protests and made angry speeches. "We will not be judged," they shouted. "We will not be controlled." Some were fascinated. They started following around, trying to understand them, worship them even. Cults formed. Temples were built. Some were angry. They blamed them for what happened to Commander and the others. They said it was unfair, that aliens should not have the power to punish without trial. But most people, the ordinary people, the ones who did not make speeches or join cults, simply became more careful. They paid attention to how they treated others. They noticed the small and the weak and the different. They asked themselves, "Am I being watched? Am I being judged?" Thought that was probably a good thing. He kept driving Route 77. It was all he knew how to do, but things were different now. The passengers treated each other better. They said please and thank you. They helped each other with bags and gave up seats for those who needed them, even though were polite. Maybe they were afraid. Maybe they were just performing for the invisible watchers, but thought that some of them at least were starting to understand. Kindness was not weakness. It was strength. It was choice. Still rode the bus every night. She had changed too. She was less shy now. She talked to other passengers. She even smiled sometimes. Her friendship with had given her confidence. She had seen what real power looked like, and she knew that it had nothing to do with size or loudness. But knew the time was coming. Had told him weeks ago that her observation period would end soon. She would return to her people and deliver her report. Earth's fate would be decided. The night finally came on a cold evening in December. The bus was empty except for snow was falling outside, covering the city in white. The streets were quiet. The world felt like it was holding its breath. Walked to the front of the bus and sat in the seat directly behind. "This is my last night," she said. Nodded. He had known it was coming, but the words still hurt. "What will happen to us?" he asked. "That depends on my report." "And what will you say?" Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful. "I have been watching your species for 1 year. I have seen cruelty. I have seen selfishness. I have seen fear turned into hatred. Humans can be terrible when they are scared or angry." His heart sank. But, continued, "I have also seen things that surprised me. I have seen strangers help each other without asking for anything in return. I have seen people stand up for those weaker than themselves. I have seen kindness survive in places where it should not exist." She paused. I met a bus driver who helped me when no one else would. He stood against creatures twice his size because it was the right thing to do. He did not know what I was. He did not expect a reward. He simply acted from his heart. Shook his head. I am not special. I just did what anyone should do. That is exactly why you are special, said. Because you do not think you are, because kindness is normal to you. That is rare in the universe, more rare than you know. The bus rolled to a stop at the depot. The end of the line, turned off the engine and turned to face. What will you tell your people? Smiled. I will tell them that humanity is young and dangerous and capable of great evil, but I will also tell them that humanity is capable of great good. I will tell them about you, and about all the small acts of kindness I have seen. I will recommend that you be given a chance. A chance to grow, to become better, to prove that the kindness is stronger than the cruelty. Felt tears forming in his eyes. He did not know why. Thank you, he said. Stood and walked toward the door, but before she left, she turned back. The speaker will address your world's leaders tomorrow. I do not know exactly what he will say, but I believe there will be hope. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a crystal, about the size of a marble, but it pulsed with inner light. Colors swirled inside it, blues and purples and colors did not have names for. What is this? He asked. A piece of how we see, said. When you feel lost or hopeless, look into it. It will remind you of what matters. It will show you the connections between all living things. It will help you remember that even the smallest actions ripple across the universe. Took the crystal. It was warm in his hand. Will I ever see you again? He asked. Tilted her head, that familiar gesture he had seen 100 times. Perhaps. The universe is vast, but it is also small. We are all connected in ways you do not yet understand. If you ever need us, truly need us, just look into the crystal and call. We will hear. She stepped off the bus into the falling snow. A column of light appeared around her, bright and warm despite the cold. She began to rise into the air. Goodbye, Park, she said. Thank you for being kind. And then she was gone. Sat alone in the empty bus for a long time. He held the crystal in his hands and watched the colors swirl. He felt something vast opening in his mind, a glimpse of the connections had talked about. He saw threads of light linking every living thing, stretching across planets and stars. He saw that kindness was not weakness. It was the thread that held everything together. The next day, the speaker addressed Earth. Every screen on the planet showed the ancient's face. Those galaxy eyes looked at humanity, into humanity, through humanity. We have watched you, the speaker said. We have tested you. We have seen your darkness and your light. The world held its breath. Our judgment is this. Humanity will receive provisional partnership with the Galactic Coalition. You will be given 100 years to demonstrate growth. We will share knowledge and protection with you, not because you have earned it, but because of the individuals among you who showed us what you could become. The speaker paused. One human in particular gave us hope, a bus driver who had no power and nothing to gain but who stood for others anyway. He did not try to be a hero. He simply was himself, and that self was kind. Watching from his apartment, felt his face grow hot. Let this be your lesson, the speaker continued. The universe does not value strength alone. It values how the strong treat the weak. It values how the powerful treat the powerless. It values kindness, especially when it costs you something. The hologram flickered and disappeared. That night drove his route as usual, but nothing felt usual anymore. Passengers looked at him differently. Some recognized him from the speaker's description. Some just seemed to see him, really see him for the first time. At 11:47, the bus stopped its old stop. The doors opened. No one boarded. Looked at the empty stop for a long moment. Then he closed the doors and drove on. The bus was full of passengers, humans and aliens, large and small. They sat together, talked together, helped each other with bags and gave up seats. They were not perfect. They never would be, but they were trying. And maybe thought that was enough. He looked at the crystal had given him, hanging from his mirror. The colors swirled gently, a reminder of connections he could not see but knew were there. He smiled and drove on into the night. Route 77 continued through the dark streets of Seoul, past the old buildings and the new ones, past the aliens and the humans, past all the small acts of kindness and cruelty that made up a world. Did not know what the next 100 years would bring. He did not know if humanity would pass the test, but he knew what he would do. He would keep driving. He would keep being kind. He would keep standing up for those who could not stand for themselves. Because that was who he was, and that, he had learned, was the most powerful thing anyone could be. The snow continued to fall. The city glowed with light, and somewhere out among the stars, ancient eyes watched and waited to see what humanity would become. The end was really just the beginning. Press the intercom button. Route 77, he announced. Next stop, the future, please hold on, it is going to be an interesting ride. And the bus rolled on into whatever came next.